There you go.
Oh, okay, I know what it is. I have to literally point the remote right at that button right there. Okay, good, here we go, now go. I'll figure it out eventually. Is everything straight and even up there and looks all right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we're gonna start close to the neck, and we're gonna go ahead and pull the neck. Now, notice something. See how the center front line, it's not a dotted line this time, but see how the curve has changed because the figure is moving, and so there's a high hip. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull down to that center line, but look, we're going all the way across to the waist. All right, now I curved that line a little bit. That's okay. This one's a little bit smoother, so kind of fine. Yeah, let's go ahead. It's okay to curve it. That looks good. So we're going to curve, and we're going all the way over to the waist. And then we're going to come back up to the other side of the neck. And you see, once again, we're extending that line past the natural neck a little bit. And now pull this line down to this, oops. See, good thing we have erasers. Pull this line down to the center front there. Okay, now not to confuse, let me explain what we have here. You'll notice that on your figure, there's a straight line all the way from the pit of the neck to the ankle of the figure. That's a balance line. That's so that you can see the balance of the figure, and that's when you develop a figure, first thing you do is draw a balance line. All right, so that's going to show you the hip angle because you can kind of compare to that. It also helps you when you put your figure into a composition. Notice how the balance line is at a right angle to the horizon line. So your figures, in fact, you can go ahead and draw a line at the bottom. That way your figure looks grounded. It doesn't look like it's flying. It doesn't look like it's tipping over. That's what a balance line is about. But you'll notice the balance line is not the center front anymore. There's the center front line. See it? So I just didn't want you to be confused by that's the balance line, the one that's going straight through the figure, and here is the angle of her torso. Okay.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So we're connecting it
To the angle of the torso. So this curved line, that's your new center front line of your figure. It's changed because it's moved with the figure. Okay. Once you have that, let's see. Next, let's go ahead and pull that collar out, and then we'll figure out where it's a wide rolled collar. So the collar's going to come from behind the neck, but you can see it's up above this line that we extended a little bit. It's up on the neck a bit. It comes out from behind and then slopes down to the shoulder. I'm glad we did that little notch collar practice. That was a good warm-up for this. So just go ahead and do that on both sides. Trying to make it look like it's even, coming out the same place on the other side. It slopes down to the shoulder. Okay, now, same thing like the notch lapel. This collar will roll from this point, so we will have a little bit of a curved line here. Do you see that? Okay, so now you can decide, so it's going to curve from here. You can decide how wide that collar is. So, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve. It just will look a little bit better. And then same thing, this is a surplice. All right, so what's happening, look up for a second and follow my pencil. You don't have to draw this, but I want to show you what's happening. So this line is actually crossing over. There's an underneath piece that crosses over there, and it may be a little snap inside there that holds it, or it may be a little tie inside. All right, so we have to think about that because that's the same thing here. This collar's going to come down, but it would roll and meet and come over here. So there'll be a little tiny bit of space there. So go ahead and pull that side of the collar, the wide rolled collar. So far, so good, huh? Seems like it's going good. Yeah?
So
Can you see the lines all right, or is the When I make the lines, can you see them all right on here, or is it too hard with the tracing paper? Because sometimes it can just be confusing when you see too much. Okay, so the line, I'll just kind of go over it again. So I started here, extending this line, pulled it down to the waist. Then go back up to the neck, about the same distance, so you're close to the neck. Pull down to the center front of the torso angle, which is right here. There's the center front of our croquis now. Then come out from behind, out and down on the shoulder. And then think about the rolled collar rolling, so a nice curve. And then you can determine how wide that collar is, and then just try to eyeball it on the other side. Now, her body's moving now, so it's not as symmetrical as, her body is symmetrical, but there's a high shoulder and a high hip because she's walking. There's a whole movement to it. So it may not look, so you kind of have to eyeball it. Okay, this is this wide, is that about this wide? Because the figure has changed a little bit. Okay, going on. Ready? All right, so now just draw the shoulder underneath the collar coming out. And the croquis, as you can see, the croquis has a sleeve seam already on there for you to follow. So go ahead and put in that sleeve seam. And now I always got your sleeve seam in here and here. I want to indicate that there's some curve. So I'm going to show the curve of her bust a little bit. So I'm going to bring that line out and back in. I call it relaxing the line because I'm going to do a little compression here in a minute. So this side, though, there's a little compression on this side because of her high hip. Her hip is pushing that fabric up. Where on this side, it's a little smoother. So you can just kind of bring this line down smoothly to the waist. Now we get to draw that bow belt. Are you ready? All right. It won't be that hard. All right, so you can see the croquis already has a curve at the waist. We're going to follow that curve. So a little bit above the waistline, let's just mimic that curve. And that's going to be the top of the belt. And then just slightly below that waist, go ahead and mimic the curve again. And then you can see we've got a belt. It's a fabric belt. It's got some compression, so that's going to be those, gathers there at the side a little bit. And then I'm going to try to guide you through drawing a bow.
We're making the second line?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Making the second line?
The second line. Okay, so see the waistline on your croquis? Okay, so up above it, mimic that curved line. And then just below it, mimic the curved line again, just kind of following that curve that's on the croquis. So it's just up above and below, because that belt would sit right at her natural waist. It's sitting right at her natural waist, but of course it's just a little bit wider, so we have to have a line above and below.
So then on the ruching in the belt.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
Ruching in the belt?
Yeah, a little bit of gathers right there where it's being compressed, Okay, now that brings us over to the bow. So I'm actually just kind of making a little spot here for my bow. All right, this is, it's not the easiest thing to do, so don't be hard on yourselves, okay? Here we
Did the ends for the gather?
Yeah, I just put a little bit of compression right there, so that's all I've done so far.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now we're going to come over here to the bow. All right, so just to the left of the line that we pulled down, and just slightly below, here's what you're going to do. You're looking up at everybody? Okay, you're going to basically just make a curved line. Just bring it all the way down. I don't know, about to her underwear, the bottom of her underwear there. Bring a curved line. And then this side, same thing. Just bring another line down, about to her underwear. Okay, watch this. Backwards S. Or Z. There we go, Z. Make a Z. All right, then a line is going to come down. That's a column of fullness, basically, is what that is. So now a line comes down from the center of this and meets that Z, and that's showing the column of drape of the fabric. So now remember that you can, of course, watch what I'm doing and try to do this along with me. And then you also have a small reference of each of these drawings that I handed out tonight. So you can also have the actual drawing that we're doing right next to you. So if you can't see what I'm doing very well, you can always look over there, because I'm trying to duplicate exactly what's on that paper. So yeah, you'll have, this is the one that's got 3 figures, and this is the figure in the middle. And yeah, I was gonna draw the other one first, and then I thought better of it and decided to do this one first. Whoop! This chair takes off. Okay, here we go, rest of the bow. We got the part that's hangs, the tie that's hanging. All right, now, this is always hard to verbally describe, but I'm gonna try it. All right, so over here, make a long sort of keyhole shape. Sort of a keyhole shape. Okay, now, I like to do it like this. I kind of make a curved line, and then I make another line come out, and then this line can just kind of angle back to that, and then you can add another curved line there, or not. I have one there, here, and then I go back and just make one of those gathers. Okay, so to review what I did there, I made like a teardrop or keyhole shape here. I bring one line down, relax it, and then I start another line. It's just kind of curved. Actually, it could curve right back up. Now this, it's okay if you didn't even have that, but I did make another little loop there, and then add your S with a tail. Yeah, that's kind of what that is, an S with a tail. How we doing? You got it. All right, we're going to do the other side of the bow. Okay, now on this side, you can see the line just curves, comes away, comes out and curves. And then, look, it's just sort of a wiggly line back down. We could have a little bit of that loop showing, but it's just kind of a curved line. And then once again, you're going to add a gather, and that's going to be our bow. So that's our tie belt. And then you could just kind of go back and angle that line that we made back to the center of the bow. And that'll look a little more realistic. So in other words, right here, this angles back to the bow. You did it, you drew a bow.
That doesn't look right. No, I didn't draw a bow. You drew a bow. That just looks like. Ooh.
All right, moving on. Okay, we gotta put some sleeves on this blouse. And the sleeves have a French cuff. So here we go. Get on my chair. All right. I'm gonna move this over just slightly because my paper was overlapping. Okay, so I do, and it may be a weird thing that I do, I'm not certain, but I always start with the cuff first because it kind of helps me see where I'm going to angle my lines to. All right, so starting with the bottom of the cuff, you can kind of curve it around the hand. I do that sometimes, kind of like we just did with the neckline. So you can, and go ahead and put in her little clutch bag and her hand. All right, so curve around. All right, and then this is just going to angle right along, follow the angle of her wrist. Okay, now the French cuff will angle out slightly away from her body. So this is closer to her body, and this angles away from her body. And then let's go ahead and give this a curved line. Okay, now while we're here, you can almost just kind of trace that line. That will be the top stitching on her French cuff, and go ahead and put the button. Okay, now what makes it a French cuff, you might want to look up for this one. Hopefully you can see it on your drawings too, is that the cuff is actually folded up. So there's like a back, you see the V or the back of the cuff. So you have a skinny V shape there, and then you draw the top of you draw the top of the cuff. So we'll be doing it on the other side too.
I can do that.
Good. Yay! Hallelujah. Keisha, you can draw a French cuff. Okay, we're going to do the other side.
Oh, boy.
All right, now this one, you know what, since we curved the line, and because this is another thing, the cuff can curve around the wrist or it can just angle down. Either one is really correct. But let's go ahead, we're going to curve this one up and around the wrist too on this side. So, and kind of be consistent. All right, so go ahead and the inside of the body is closer to the wrist. The outside, or, yeah, I don't know how to describe that. Anyways, that's where the angle is going to happen. So that angle's away from her body, where this just kind of follows the angle of her wrist. And then we can go ahead and add the curve line at the top, and we might have a second row of stitching for her top stitch, the top stitch on the cuff. We add a nice big button, and then here's the V again. So if this is confusing, you look up for a second and see the skinny V shape. That's what makes it a French cuff. And there's the shape. And there we got a French cuff, and now we're ready to, we can see where we're going with the sleeve and kind of, gauge the proportion of the sleeve. The sleeve, as you can see, is not real full. It's just a shirt sleeve. All right, so do you need a minute? Okay. We ready to continue? Yes. Okay, here we go. So we've pulled the shoulder out, we've put in the sleeve seam. Now here at the cap of a sleeve, you have a little bit of ease. So you can just pull it out the tiniest bit. It's not a lot. And then actually we're just going to kind of curve down to the cuff. It's just kind of a straight sleeve. You might have a little hanging fold there, just shows the movement of the fabric in the sleeve, and then you can see the inside of the sleeve is just drawn right next to the arm. So it's fairly close to the arm, just next to the arm. This you see comes a little wave away from the arm. It's not a bent arm, so we don't really have a compression wrinkle or anything. It's just curves along with the arm, and I have a little bit of ease at the cap of the sleeve. I don't have gathers or anything. Okay, other side, same thing, just a little bit of ease past that shoulder. Bring the sleeve down next to the arm, not too close to the arm. If you draw the sleeve too close to the arm, it'll look like a knit. And it's not a knit, it's a woven fabric. So, because it's a blouse. So don't draw too close to the arm. Okay, you can see on the inside, again, next to the arm, but not too close to the arm, and it's all inside that cuff now. And then once again, we have a little, like a little hanging fold, just showing movement of the fabric in the blouse.
Where did you do it from?
So this line right here, so here you have kind of a hanging fold, and here you have a hanging fold. It might show it better if you, in the handout, or you can look over here if that's, yeah, it is still showing up good, okay. All right, now, below the belt, bring that fabric so it comes out next to the hip. So you're tracing not right on the hip, but next to the hip. Okay, and then out, and then we don't really see much on the other side because of the bow. It's kind of hiding it. Okay, now this is where the horizon line comes in. Notice that because the blouse ends below her waist, there's a downward curve. Now, there's two things that affect the curves on garments on the bodies. So the horizon line, again, is at the waist. If the garment ends, or a seam ends or is above the waist, upward curve. If it ends below the waist, downward curve. But there's a second thing that affects the angle, and that's the hip angle. I'm going to show you something, so look up for a second. So notice how when this body began to move, the torso angle moved. She has now a high hip. This is the supporting leg, opposite high shoulder. It's just traditional in fashion poses. High hip, opposite high shoulder. All right, that torso angle, if I take, and you can do this if you want, if I take and draw a dotted line across, squaring the line from the torso angle, that's my hip angle. I don't think I put one on the croquis, but you're welcome to put one on your croquis. You literally see how I'm putting the bold line right on that torso, and see how it gives me my hip angle? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so see, I'm just squaring, it could be any line on your ruler. You line it up with that torso angle and draw and therefore you get this angle, which is the hip angle, showing the high hip. This is the lower hip. That will affect curves. So this will have a downward curve, but it's still gonna curve at that hip angle. So it'll curve down like the hip angle does. So there's the curve, roundness of the body, but see, it follows the hip angle. We're going to see the same thing at the bottom of the skirt. The skirt hem will follow the hip angle. Okay, everybody with me? All right, let's go on, and we're just drawing a simple pencil skirt on this first one. All right, so we're going to just come up below the blouse there, and you can see not too tight, so just next to the body. If you literally trace the legs, then you've got a knit skirt, but we're just doing a woven pencil skirt. So just next to the body, and then on the opposite side. Now this leg, it'll be a little, because this leg is coming forward, it's going to pull the fabric a little tighter to this leg over here. So you can pretty much go right next to the leg on that side. But on this side, let it just fall slightly away. Now what might happen, and actually if you look at your handout, typically you might have some shading. You know what let me show you something. This figure is based off of, I don't think I brought all my reference in here, but this figure was based off of a pose out of the Moschino catalog. We went up to Moschino last semester and picked up, let me see if I got it. Yeah, there it is. So we developed the figure from this pose, and then we used it as a shade for a reference for a shading study. We dressed it, and so anyways, you can kind of, so in this you can see where I did the shading. what kind of happens, you get a little compression here where her leg's coming forward. Here, I'll put it up here so you can see better. Okay, so see what's happening, and I've exaggerated it here in my shading study, but see how her leg's coming forward, which causes a little compression wrinkle up here, and you might have a little shadow here, and a little shadow here, a little shadow here, a little shadow on this side of the leg. So we can kind of even indicate that, so we might have a little shadow. We'll do this with marker, but that's the kind of thing we'll be looking at for reference. So, okay. Let's draw the hem. I think it's up here, actually. Okay, so now, all right, the hem angle could, let me show you. The hem angle could do this. It could literally just curve, following the hip angle, curve over this, and curve down like that, and that would be perfectly acceptable.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, we can't see it.
Oh, okay. I need to zoom out or move it up, huh? Okay, I'll just move the drawing up a little bit because I've got my tracing paper taped. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, you can, you can't see this one either, can you? Now can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where, artistic license comes in a little bit, and you're gonna, that's the way it is. So if I wanted to just follow this hip angle, this would be a perfectly acceptable way to do it. So I'm curving a little bit to show the roundness of that leg, and then I curve down around. Okay, now I followed the hip angle, and I curve down. Those are the rules. You can see what I did here, though, was I showed that leg was pushing forward, so I curved it up just a little bit over that knee and then down. You choose whichever you prefer here. I'll erase this again, and I'll show you both ways. So here, it's curved up over that knee and then down a little bit, or also correct to curve a little bit over this and then down around this way. So whichever way you prefer, you can draw that in, and as long as you're showing a downward curve for the perspective and also following the hip angle, it's correct. And once you have that, go ahead and just quickly trace the shape of your legs on your croquis.
Is that supposed to be her back cap?
Back calf?
Like the gap, there's like a gap here?
There's a gap there, yeah. That's her calf.
Oh, okay.
Here, you can look up there. Maybe I gave her too much curve on her calf, but yeah, you can look up at the reference
Yeah,
too.
because like on our, it looks like a little piece of extra meat. The back.
Okay,
I
well,
was like,
we'll straighten it out a little bit then if you want. I gave her a muscular calf.
okay.
Okay, you did your first blouse and first skirt. You proud of yourself? All right, let's do another.
Is it easier using a lead pencil?
Because I feel like this is so fat.
It's bold. It's more bold than that
Yeah.
It is bold. This is actually very bold too. This because it's soft lead, but it doesn't get fat because I don't have to constantly sharpen it. So yeah, I think so
Yeah.
because I don't have to sharpen it as much. Because I most